and welcome to The Game Changers. I'm Sue Anstis, and this is the podcast where you'll hear from trailblazing women in sport, breaking boundaries and challenging the status quo for women and girls everywhere. What can we learn from their journeys as we explore key issues around equality in sport and beyond? A huge thank you to Sport England, who support the Game Changers podcast through a National Lottery Award. My guest today is Sophie Power, a British 24-hour ultra runner, world record holder and leading voice for women's inclusion and equity in sport. Known for her extraordinary endurance and pioneering advocacy, Sophie's story is as much about challenging the culture of sport as it is about pushing human limits. Sophie's the fastest woman ever to run the length of Ireland, covering 347 miles in an astonishing 84 hours and 8 minutes. And she also holds the Guinness World Record for the greatest distance run on a treadmill in 48 hours. In 2018, a powerful and unforgettable image of Sophie breastfeeding her 3-month-old baby during a gruelling UTMB mountain race captured hearts worldwide and ignited a global conversation about motherhood and endurance. Harnessing the platform of that moment, Sophie founded SheRACES, a groundbreaking research and advocacy organisation that's driven equity for women in sporting events across the globe. So Sophie, let's begin with that iconic image. You breastfeeding your baby during the 106-mile UTMB mountain race. For anyone that hasn't seen the photo, can you describe it and set the scene for us?
I mean, the photo is at the 50-mile point and the race starts at 6 o'clock at night. So I've gone through the night. It's the next morning. He's only breastfed. So I've got these breasts are very full of milk and very tender, and I've been trying to squeeze them out behind trees and on the path just to relieve that tension. And the photo is just me breastfeeding Cormac one side, pumping the other side. There's a full feed in both of them. And next to me, there's a guy asleep on the floor, because that's what I wanted to do, because I've been running through the night and that's what I should have been doing at the checkpoint. But I'm there to finish a race and I've got to breastfeed my baby. I've got to get him some milk for the rest of the time and then get on with the race. But it's a beautiful photograph taken by the photographer Alexis Berg, and it just captures the struggle I think that mother athletes have to juggle, our goals, our sporting goals, or any goals, and also being mother.
You're right, though. It is. It's a beautiful photograph. I think, as you say, that kind of comparison of the guy with his legs laying upwards as he's sleeping next to you too, that is almost the bit that's kind of sets it apart, the difference in those two athletes. I remember seeing it at the Getty exhibition. It was at the Saatchi Museum as one of the iconic images of women's sport from across a period of time. So I think for so many women, it was so powerful. But taking yourself back to that moment, how did you feel physically and emotionally? What was going through your mind?
I think I was angry, really, because I shouldn't have been there. I should have had the opportunity to race the year after when I was fully physically fit and back together. And the UTMB, the Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc, is it's like the World Championships of ultra running. I got my first place in 2014. You have to run qualifying races, quite difficult ones, kind of 100-mile type races, and then be successful in a ballot. And I got my place in 2014. I lost it because I was pregnant with my first son, and they said you couldn't defer for pregnancy. You could for injury. Pregnancy was a choice. I would argue that the timing of pregnancy is not a choice, certainly for none of my 3 babies. And I didn't want to lose my place again. And I thought, I'll just go 10K. I'll just enjoy the atmosphere. Chamonix at that time is incredible. And it was something in the diary for me to stay fit through pregnancy, to have that goal that made me believe that I was going to get back to who I was. And so I was angry that I shouldn't have been there. But very much I was thinking about, well, I can do this. I can juggle this. I've got my baby. I've got my goals. I've got an incredibly supportive family behind me. And I genuinely didn't think it was unusual. I didn't think there was anything weird about what I was doing. I was just a mother with goals, and mums just get on with it. And I wasn't on social media at the time. And it was only when my world exploded the week after that I realized that this isn't the norm for many women. They don't go after their goals and they do kind of struggle getting back. And maybe there's something I can do to support these women.
And how did you feel when that image did go viral? Had you known the image was taken at the time?
He definitely asked.
Yeah, I didn't really mean to ask that, but I've never thought before of course.
He asked, and I, do you know what, I thought, do you know, if the race organisers see this image, they'll think this is ridiculous. What are we doing? We should absolutely let her race when she's ready. And it took me 4 years to get that for other women, but now actually UTMB have some of the best pregnancy deferral policies in the world at 5 years, and we work very closely together. But that's all I thought would happen. But that was the reason. It's such a personal photograph. I've got my bra hoiked up over my boobs. It's not the most flattering. But I just thought, you know, if this changes it for one woman and they can take on this goal when they're ready, then that's worth it.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I hadn't thought, because when you see the image, and I remember feeling how powerful the image is, you feel it's a celebration of motherhood and extraordinary women that can do all things. And not that absolutely you shouldn't. The point is, you shouldn't have been there. If you'd had the option, you would have chosen to race the following year or the year after.
I think so. And I think that everyone says, well, do you wish they had the policies back in place then? It's like, well, no, now, given what the change has been in the world since then and founding SheRACES and everything I've gone on to do, no, I'm glad I got myself round. But yeah, the goal was never to get round, but it was the day before I had my 3-year-old and he was watching other, mostly men, fathers with their children cross the line of the shorter races and said, Mum, that's going to be me. I said, oh God, I've got to get around 106 miles. And you could do it hiking and my pelvis wasn't back together. And it was just let's get round this for Donica to have that experience. So I'm so glad I did it. And then I went on to have a third baby and had a completely different getting back. And I was very conscious that this isn't the norm. You know, women aren't expected to run 106 miles at 3 months postpartum. With my third, I expected to get back quickly and I had a prolapse. And it took a lot longer, that journey. So I was very conscious, not putting pressure on women to say, this is what you should be doing, and being very open with the support around me to be able to do that. But what we want to do is make sure that, you know, women can get back and we do have the support around them. And that was kind of the goal coming out, that maybe we can raise some of these issues and highlight that we struggle after we have babies.
And looking back now, was it that moment, it was that photograph that shaped the journey that you've had since then in all that you've done? Would you have gone on to do that, do you think, if that hadn't gone viral and had the profile that it did?
No, I think it's definitely a kind of the sliding doors moment in my life. I think there's been a couple. I think the day I signed up for my first run, having never run more than a mile, and decided to run across the Sahara, and then this allowing this photo to go out. And I think I originally realised that, you know, we needed to talk about pregnancy deferrals and every race should have them. And so many race directors contacted me and said, I can't believe we haven't thought of this. And, you know, we have a no deferral for any circumstance point of view. Of course we should allow women. We need to actively encourage women to start line. And it started with that. And it started with my story on balance. And then I start realising that, you know, it's not just pregnancy. If we look at the start lines I'm on, the longer start lines, sometimes they're only 10% women, 20%. Ultras are a minority, but women are phenomenal at these long distance races. So can I then understand what these other barriers are to women in events? And some are societal. You know, women take on more of the childcare responsibilities. We drop out of sport at a very early age. We don't feel we're as good at boys at sport. But so many of the events can do something about. And can I use this platform that I've been gifted to work with event organisers to get more women on start lines? Because for me, you know, racing has been transformational in my life. I wasn't a sporty kid. I was second last in the mile at school. Somehow I now run for Great Britain. But for very much, I believe like finishing lines change lives. And you only have to stand on the end of a marathon or kind of these ultras and watch people come across and go, they signed up for something. They weren't quite sure they could do it and they complete it. And, you know, it gives you so much strength throughout the rest of your life that this is something that everyone deserves. And if I can use this platform to enable other women to have these life-changing kind of transformations that give them the strength, that give them the power to do more. And I've just in the process of writing a book, and kind of stage 1, I think, was the sharing my story. Stage 2 is SheRACES and very much working with events. And stage 3 is using sport as this lens for the rest of society. And where SheRACES goes and where I'm asked, and we work with Brentford Football Club on a maternity policy for season ticket holders. So set by thinking, well, if women have to be supported to get back from pregnancy and sport, what about the rest of our lives? What about the other ways in business in which women are different from men? And can we use sport as an example to then get people thinking differently about medical provision, about how we treat in the workplace? So that's what's really exciting. And it's crazy that all of that has come out of one photographer being in an aid station 50 miles into a race.
And there's so much I want to unpack and go into with you there. But before I do, going back to the comment that you made about the suddenly running across the desert when you'd only run a few miles before. How did that start? Why was that the turning point that happened?
I think I grew up as the unsporty kid. I say the unsporty kid. I think that was lots of us that were unsporty. My parents never pushed sport. I think my kids they're 4, 7, 10. They're so sporty. They love it. They just adore it. And I never had that access to sport. And I was second last in mile at school when I was 14. I remember it so clearly, kind of in those awful pea knickers that rode up and the chafing from just running that mile in the heat. And I just wrote myself off. As a lot of women do, we write ourselves off. I can't do this. I'm not capable. I'm not talented. I loved hiking. I loved being outside. I wanted to play team sport, but I just didn't have the options. And you weren't chosen for the team unless you'd played it before. And my hand-eye coordination is slightly lacking compared to my kids. My 7-year-old beats me at tennis. I've given up now. But I wrote myself off, and then I was made redundant from a job in finance when I was 26. I got married and they needed to make someone redundant. So they told me to go off and have babies. And then my friend had just done this Marathon des Sables, the 250-kilometer race across the Sahara. And I trained as a pilot navigator when I was at university in the Royal Air Force. And we'd done this 9 mega marches, 100 miles over 4 days. And he'd been in my team and I'd done well. And he said, you could do this. And I said, but I don't run. He goes, no one runs, everyone hikes. They call it the hardest race in the world, but everyone walks. You've got to go 3 kilometers an hour to make the cutoffs. So it's a slow walk. And sometimes you get this point in your life where you don't have a reason to say no. And if you don't have a good reason to say no, you just have to say yes. And I blindly trusted him, signed up, had 9 months to go from 0 running to 250 kilometers. And, it transformed the rest of my life. I worked out that actually I was good at this. And some of the skill sets I developed of logistics, of planning, of mental toughness. And I started my career as an investment banker. So we used to work 7-day weeks and all-nighters. So it's pretty handy when you have to run through the whole night. And that just set me on a different trajectory and completely changed my thinking of, I never thought I could do this. So what are the other things in my life that I never thought I could do that maybe I can do because I've done this?
And what's the gap in time then from doing that to that photo being taken?
8 years. So this was pre-baby. This was 2010. I did the Marathon des Sables. And then I started doing the same kind of races all around the world. I call them holidays because you do 5, 6, 7 days. You carry your own things or sometimes they carry it for you. And you see a country in a completely different way. And it's spectacular. And I was in Nepal and Bhutan and Cambodia and in Iceland, sometimes dragging my hubby along for company and meeting people I'd never meet. So this was what I did before children. Then you have kids and it's pretty hard to go away for 10 days. And so I started running the longer distances nonstop. So focusing on 100-mile races where you can start running, you run a long way, and then you're done the next day and you've got to pick up the pieces of the kids.
And it is interesting, isn't it, to see how that's evolved, that your ultra running career alongside motherhood, a rare combination, but actually probably not so when you talk to more women that are in that space. But have you noticed ways in which motherhood has made you a better athlete?
I think so. I think I'm the reverse athlete in that I wasn't sporty at school. And now the older I get, the faster I seem to get, the tougher challenges. I got my first GB best after having my third baby, almost as an accident because I was trying to qualify for a different race. And then, British Athletics called me up the next day and say, would you like to come to European Championships for 24 hours? So for me, I think the time I have training is special. I need it. I need that time racing where the only thing I have to think about is putting one foot in front of the other. Outside racing, my brain is the mental load of 3 children and work and SheRACES and everything else is crazy. We all know it. And it's the one time I have to really kind of free myself of this. And the long runs are really special to me at the weekends, where I can just process my thoughts in a way that I can't in general. I've got an amazing coach, Edwina Sutton, she's got 3 kids slightly older, so she absolutely understands my life. And the down weeks in training are kind of half term and the summer holiday juggle, and training is around all of it. But I just prioritize, and I don't know what I did with my time before I had kids, to be honest. I wasted so much time. I think it's that and learning to look after yourself and deal with monotony. People ask me, how do you run laps? So when I run a 24-hour, it's often around an athletics track for 24 hours, or as a 1 kilometer loop. And that's no different to a 2-year-old saying, mummy, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have that? There's no difference to me in this. So it's just a monotony, and we get used to dealing with it. So there's lots of ways. If I look at the World Championships in Taiwan last time, the British team were 4 mothers. So there must be something in there.
And we do hear a lot, don't we, about mothers feeling the need to choose between motherhood and ambitions in life. So what would you say? And I absolutely recognise people in different positions in terms of the support they have around their lives too. But clearly you've managed to combine the two.
I'm a better mother when I'm happy with myself and I have my own goals. I mean, the kids throw shoes at me in the morning, at the weekend, like, off you go for your run. Dad will give them far better snacks than I will. But they also know that I'm a calm and happier person. And I think I'm a much better role model. My 4-year-old's a daughter. And I'm a much better role model to her, to show that Dad's got his interests, Mum has his interests. But it's difficult. And I think after that photo was taken, some of the most powerful messages I had were from dads. And they message and say, my partner was really sporty and active before she had our child. And now she doesn't ask to go out, doesn't ask to go running. And I realized that it's not that she doesn't want to, it's that she doesn't feel entitled to.
Yeah.
She doesn't feel she's able to ask for that time. And I'm still doing my things. And what I have to do as a partner is actively enable her and maybe sign her up to a race. I think one of the big reasons for pregnancy deferrals, and we're working on a big report on it, just to try and explain why it's so important for women to be able to defer their place in an event. And it's not often about the cost. It's often about that opportunity to have that in the diary, to still feel as we were, to still feel that we're an athlete. We're going to get back there and we're going to do everything we can and get the support there and work so hard on our physical rehabilitation. That's what's important. Having that event in the diary is that excuse that a lot of us need to get out the door at a weekend, to go away from the kids for half an hour, 2 hours and train. We need to educate our partners in a way that, they may not feel different from having a baby, but sociologically, we've got all these pressures on us and we need to be supported through them.
That's so interesting, isn't it? I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective. And yet knowing myself with a goal in mind and an ambition is something to psychologically to aim for, to train for. But of course, having that in a diary and even knowing it's 18 months time rather than 6 months time can be such a huge, powerful motivator for all you do in life.
I mean, for me, if I don't have races in the diary, I've got an amazing coach. She get me out of bed to do things, but I do need those races, those events, I need to know what's happening next and having these stepping stones. So when it's like 11 o'clock at night and are we going to put another program on or are we going to have a glass of wine? It's like, no, training tomorrow. It's better for us.
And how do your children feel about your achievements and your profile and the visibility of the work you're doing? Are they kind of aware of that?
They're very aware and they're so proud and they love being involved. And I think the main reason I decided to set the world record to run the length of Ireland is my husband's Irish. He's from Cork. His whole family are there. And, we wanted to see the country differently. But I knew that it's very difficult for me to take the kids with me on events. The world champs are in Taiwan. I mean, this year they're in France. So they're actually going to come over. But I wanted to do something with them by my side. And they were in the camper van. So we dropped my daughter in the south with the grandparents. And my mental challenge was that I'm just going to get back to Saoirse as soon as I can. The faster I run, the faster I get to my daughter. But the boys were beside me and it was so, so special. It puts a bit of a struggle on because they want more record certificates because they love show and tell. Love show and tell. So when I brought a trophy back after the weekend run, they were like, right, okay, which one gets it for show and tell first? But they love it and they see limits differently. And so when my 6-year-old came out for a 10K night run that was set up by an organizer, and there's lots of Haribo at the checkpoints. This is a big sell. But he's like, well, I can do anything. And they see women, I think, differently to our friends already, is that my mum can do this. Women are different to men. They know that. And they know that kind of there's a gap, but they think women are phenomenal athletes. And there's 2 little male advocates that we're going to have kind of growing up that are like, we respect. They love training their sister at tennis. They love seeing her do well. So yeah, there's pressure on to do more world record attempts because they love them. So we've got another one kind of in the works for next year. And yeah, I love adventures. So any kind of adventure that I can bring them on with me and set a world record, if that happens, would be brilliant.
Do they run? Are they runners too? My
10-year-old will run after a ball. If there's a ball, he'll run after it. He's a tennis player. He's a hockey player. He doesn't he won't come along as much. And you'd never want to push it.
No.
And I wasn't running when I was 10. My 7-year-old loves being on his bike. They do sprint intervals. So we hike at weekends. We're very outdoorsy. And they do lots of sprint intervals at the hill. My 4-year-old grew up on the hills. We hike up a big hill and down to school, and her downhill running is phenomenal. She's got no fear. I will not keep up with her. I like my hamstrings. So they love sport, and it's just encouraging that and encouraging all that kind of learning the base skills that I always go back to, but I never had them. And I never learned to throw a ball or catch a ball. And that plays down sports to me. I want them to be able to find a sport they love and have that as an asset for life, that they have a way of moving their body that makes them happy, that makes them be around other people. And that's the goal for me. It doesn't matter how good they are at it. It's just that they love it.
Absolutely. Here. You founded SheRACES, and we've talked about the kind of rationale and the reasoning why. But I wonder if you can share some of the most sort of surprising or important insights your research and community engagement has shown you that perhaps even you weren't aware of.
Oh, there was so much. I think when I started thinking about it, I thought about all my own barriers. That's where I started with. And obviously there was the lack of confidence in signing up for things. There was the maternity. But women are so diverse. We're so diverse, and there's so many different things. So we did a survey of 2,000 women to understand mostly running events. And we've gone on to do another survey for triathlon, and then another one for understanding why women might want to take part in women-only events and how that might give them more confidence to then step into kind of the mixed events that are the majority of events. So we started off, and it was very much, let's listen to lots of stories and uncover what's happening in events. And so much there with the lack of confidence. I think we look at the physiological differences and the need for pregnancy deferrals and period products. The amount of times my period has started mid-race and there's no pockets to carry anything and you're just stuck. It's like toilet paper. It should be alongside that. And looking at the ways where, 80% of women had a t-shirt that doesn't fit because they're designed for men. All mine fit me when I was 37 weeks pregnant. My husband wears them. My kids will all wear them. They'll get one. But there's ways that we differ that side, but then also the sociological differences, and that we won't sign up to a race unless we're absolutely sure of making those cutoffs. And those languages of dangerous, most difficult, really hard, changing that language into saying, this is the speed you need to go to meet the cutoff. We're going to extend the cutoff as much as we can, logistically possible. These are how all the logistics, how you get, I think 40% of women were put off by a race by just not knowing all the information and having to, not missing the first public transport to get there. So we couldn't get there. The imagery, when you see a start line picture on a website and it's a start line and it's all the fast men that have pushed their way forward, I don't feel that I belong. And I'm not that slow. And my friends that are kind of like novice runners or back of the pack runners, women of colour especially, women of different shapes and sizes, they don't feel they belong on that start line. The organiser may have an amazing race, but they don't feel they belong because that's not the imagery. And when you go on socials and they say the winner of the race is this guy and the winner of the female race is this woman, it's like, no, he's a male winner, she's a female winner. There are two races. And I think a lot of SheRACES boils down to the fact that you're mixing men and women on a start line and you're designing the race for the men. And there's such small changes. So we came up with kind of 8 points that any event could put into for almost no money. And then so much more around that from the insight work, and put it out there and say, you can sign up to this, you be accredited, we'll push your race out. We want those races that are great for women to have more women on the start line and be successful. And so that's part of it. Part of it is the advocacy, kind of, trying to convince London Marathon to allow a pregnancy deferral is for good for age, which we succeeded in. We had Chicago. We've got the biggest race in the world, UTMB, Ironman, now doing that. And then it's gone very much global. And we have SheRACES India. We're working with races in Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Oman, Turkey, Guatemala, and the US, Hong Kong. So it's a small kind of nonprofit that started up with some research and just saying, hi guys, there are some things you can do to be more successful. And suddenly it's a global organization of women really going, I can ask for this. I'm empowered to say, do you know what? I love your race, but I really would like pregnancy deferrals. I'd like period products. I'd like you to talk about the women differently. It's very small changes that make very big differences. And when we work with Threshold on their 50-50 project for Ultra, they agreed to open up all their data to me. And we did a big project to get more women on the start line of their 50K race and 100K race and a 1.5 increase in spend, which I think was mostly a bit of sanitary products and a bit of signage, had 100% more women on the start line of their target event and 50% more men because they had so much brilliant media attention around it. So this is not, we're not a charity. You don't do this because it's the kind of, oh no, we feel sorry for women. All these changes are just about equity. They're not making the race easier for us. We don't want that. We just want to feel more comfortable. And at the same time, you'll make an awful lot more money, be commercially more successful. And that's the massive argument behind this. And women will be so much more loyal. And now kind of we shift it to talking to the brands. And there's a lot of brands that sponsor races. And the brands are saying we're equitable for women, we're inclusive, we do this great product. But they sponsor races that aren't. And we will say, every brand only sponsored inclusive races. My work would be done. My goal is that SheRACES doesn't exist, does not need to exist. I can go back to doing a bit more running and train a bit harder. And that's the goal. So it's pretty bonkers. We've got the triathlon workout. We're looking at cycling. We're looking at some big, darker things behind the scenes, I think now on safeguarding and harassment, that events fall through the cracks on working with British Triathlon, working with British Athletics, where events aren't a national governing body. They're a law unto themselves. And they decide things. And there's a lot of things that happen at races that shouldn't happen, but they're not managed the right way. So they're the kind of next steps for where we do. And we're just looking for the right funding that we can address that, because we put the guidelines out, we can get them out to millions of people on start lines pretty easily.
And how has response been? Clearly, when you articulate it in that way, is that why would race organisers not take that on, event directors? Because it can be more profitable for them. They'll get more women, they get more men, they'll have more successful races. But I imagine it wasn't that easy an ask, because if it was, people would have been doing it in the first place. So I guess my question there is, how's it generally been responded? Have you seen that change over the period of time? Are many more coming on board with it now?
Oh, we've had some fights. It's not easy. I think it's not easy resource getting out to all the races. It's sad that it often takes me to step in, and women get no's from races and they contact us, and I message a race organizer. And this is me doing this personally at 11 o'clock at night often. We're a very small team, and I put organizers on a spectrum, and there's some that were doing the right thing already and not even probably shouting about it the right way. So you've helped them do that to really attract the women. And if you want to find an inclusive race, you can go on SheRACES.com, and we've got all the race organizers listed. A lot of them were female race directors in the first place. Right. Then you've got the group that realise it's the right thing to do. So they'll change things. They didn't look at the cost, even though it was so tiny, they didn't look at it. And they're going above and beyond, and things like kind of recce days and things like kind of webinars to understand how things they're looking at, really sponsoring some of the underrepresented groups to the start line and making sure kind of that, women of colour, women living in cities, women who haven't been exposed to some of these races can really have those resources to get on the start line. They're amazing. I think the bulk of races, though, are the commercial ones. And, you show them now that it's the right thing to do. And they're like, we'll do some of the ones that really annoy me are the ones that claim that they're equitable because it's great for publicity, and then they're not. Some of the interesting ones, kind of when we point it out, they get quite defensive. But there are dinosaurs. We know that there are dinosaurs, and there are sadly still events that don't believe that women or slower athletes should be on those start lines. They believe that their events are only for fast people, for men, for younger people. And I mean, the dinosaurs went extinct, and that's going to, in my brain, it's so much energy to try and change one of those organisers that could be spent on supporting one of the others, that we have to pick our battles. But we know that, we want events to be for all. And sometimes you have to have tight cutoffs, but you can rethink things. In one fell race we worked with, women just put off because the timing was so tight. And we said, well, and it was due to volunteers on the mountain. We said, well, could you let people off in an earlier start? They're not going to have to open the checkpoint earlier because they'll take slower than the fastest athlete starting an hour later. Could you do that? And suddenly you have 50% kind of more women over 50 signing up to the race, and many more men over 60 and 70 signing up. So it's for everyone. It's not, I think it's called SheRACES, but really it's everyone races.
Everybody,
and especially when you're looking at creating that culture of acceptance and inclusion on a start line, that benefits every athlete, not just women.
The cutoffs is an interesting area, isn't it? If you're not in the world of running, whether ultras or marathons or any of those, but that idea of the broom wagon kind of sweeping up or being told, that is kind of a scary thought, really. I looked at one of you're launching some races, or one of your races, that a SheRACES event with no cutoff. How refreshing, for women to see that, as you say, for people just to see that there is that opportunity at whatever pace you're at, you'll be able to finish this race.
There's a difference between women and men often. And I think in our survey, kind of 46% of women have been put off a race by the cutoffs. And we underestimate our ability massively. And we worked with Abingdon Marathon last year to try and increase the cutoff from 5 hours to 6 hours. They sold out the race the first time in 3 years with 2,000 more women. And I had a friend who was a 4:15 athlete, and that was her normal marathon time. She said, well, I'm not signing up for a 5 hour cutoff. What if something happens? What if my stomach turns? What if? I know if I'm giving up my weekend and I'm training really hard, I want to bring a medal back to my kids. And we give up so much to have those racing opportunities. I don't get to race as much as most others because that's a weekend away from my children. And I've got to be respectful to my partner and my husband and making sure he's training. And she underestimated her potential. We moved it to 6 hours. You're a 5 hour athlete. You can do that. And the language is so important. And it's something so small and something so easy to change and change the narrative around. But it just hasn't been thought of because we do find that men will sign up to an event and look at it later. My husband signed up to an event that was cycling across the country from sunrise to sunset. And he signed up, paid the money. He had no idea how he was going to get his bike to the start line. No idea how he was going to get his bike home from the finish line. Ended up not doing it because I was like, piece of paper, we cannot do this. It's going to cost hundreds of pounds for you to do this. And I just couldn't see most women I know signing up that way.
I love that. I mentioned in the introduction the treadmill, 48-hour treadmill record that you broke. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about that because I think most of us might struggle to run for an hour in the gym on a treadmill. So kind of what got you through those 48 hours? Was it the running show? Was it the National Running Show?
Yeah. I guess rewinding, it was 48 hours. Why 48 hours? Which was a question I asked myself many times during it. I think when I run, it came in my head, I'm a 24-hour athlete for Great Britain, and I'm a slow 24-hour athlete in terms of I'm much better at the long distances. So most women, they're stepping up from marathon, they're stepping up from 100K. I'm stepping down from, I think, what my main event would be about 48. Generally in the events, I'm nowhere halfway, and then I come through the field in the last 12 hours. It's how I'm built. I don't look like your typical elite marathon runner. I'm far more muscular, I'm stocky, I don't fall apart in the same way. I do an awful lot of strength training. I'm a kind of a diesel engine really that just keeps going. So I thought 48 hours is a great time, and there's 48-hour world championships, but it's so difficult for me to travel, and I'd have to take a crew, I'd have to lead the family. That's really difficult to do, and there's only so many times you can do it. And I thought, I can't do that, but what could I do instead? And I think thinking about kind of Ireland and how the engagement was amazing. From people came out and ran on the streets, and my tracker was live. So I'd have people waiting at the corner of roads and say, can I come for a few miles? Can I join for a long time? It was just utterly amazing to engage. And I do almost all my training solo because I train straight after drop off. and then get back, and then I work in evenings, and I've got a treadmill at home, and I'm very privileged to have a gym set up so I can do most things in the house while the kids are asleep. So I wanted to engage with lots of people, and I thought maybe this going to make sense. I could do it in a public environment. And Mike Seaman, the head of the running show, is a friend of mine.
They're so lovely, aren't they? Lovely team.
And they're right based in Guildford, where I am. And I thought it was quite a long time after Ireland that I thought about this, because I was writing the book and I was like, it must have been months. And you check your inbox, and I think it was just several days after Ireland. and my coach says, don't make any sharp decisions. But I emailed him and I didn't hear back for a week. And I forgot about it. And then I got the email going, we set it all up, so this is going to be great. I was like, oh no. But I think it was really there were 30,000 people. Yes, it was a way to raise money for SheRACES. It was a way to engage with people. It was a way to engage with non-trail runners. It was very logistically possible. Ireland killed me planning the logistics. And I had my amazing friend, Kate Strong, who is an endurance cyclist and a most amazing person managing that. And she managed the treadmill challenge with all the signatories he needed and the crews, but it's much easier to do it in one place. And then we had Dr. Jamie Pugh at Liverpool John Moores University able to do physiological testing on me every hour because I'm in one place. So there's kind of gas masks over me and blood tests and lactate tests. And we were able to do something about the lack of research into women endurance sport. We could do something about that. So it all fit together. I didn't really think about it, to be honest. And it was so hot. And in January in the NEC in Birmingham, I was overheating. I had ice bandanas on. But it was just so wonderful to see all my friends. And when you go to the running show, there's tens of thousands of people and you miss people. Everyone had to come to me because I couldn't move. So it was lovely. You got kind of Mo Farah coming over to chat and Joe Pavey coming for chat and my friend Jasmine and Faraz. It was just brilliant. But I got so disorientated, and it got to the point where I broke the record with about 7 hours to go. And suddenly I couldn't run on a treadmill. I could run off the treadmill, but I was falling off.
Wow. And
my husband was there and he's like, this is dangerous now. So you're going to just hike really quickly. Just put some extra into the record, hike really quickly. So I downloaded the series of Traitors. I didn't watch any Traitors. I said, I always had a sign up saying, do not tell me he gets kicked out. And I saved it all. And then I just found I couldn't watch TV. And I normally watch TV on a treadmill. So I was just chatting to people and just having a lovely, it was really, really special. I would absolutely not do it again, but it was really special.
You don't need to now, do you? And we alluded there also to the Ireland run. How do you get through and those kind of points when, and maybe it's different when you're doing the treadmill run at the running show because there's people around, although I imagine not quite so many in the middle of the night. But when you're so exhausted and you're tired and you've got miles to go, how are you training your mind? How do you deal with, especially if you can't watch the Traitors, but how do you deal with what's happening in your head at those times?
I think there's so many mental tricks that you learn, but I think the most important thing is knowing why you're there. And knowing why you're there is number one. And we can create a challenge you about Ireland, which was find something that's just outside your comfort zone. I knew I can run 24 hours. I'd done longer. This was a perfect distance, kind of 350-ish miles for me.
Can't believe you just said that. Perfect distance, 356 miles.
Sounds terrible. I know. There's something wrong with me. But it's a great kind of three days. And I knew why I was there. And I knew that I was there to run home to my daughter. And I was there to inspire my children. I was there to put a little beacon of kind of thought in women's brains that we can do things that seem impossible. And maybe that we thought about signing up for a 10K that we possibly could. And I knew that tens of thousands of people had a tracker and they were refreshing and seeing where I was. And one man, he said goodnight to his daughter and came out for some miles. And he said, she's watching. And I knew that I got to the end. I was like, I've got to get done for bedtime. The kids' bedtime by 8 p.m, because I know that there's a lot of parents going to be up with kids looking at this tracker going, would you please just finish so the kids will go to bed? But there's so many tricks, and I think breaking it down into chunks. And I knew that one of my best friends, Kira, was waiting in Longford just over 100 miles. So that was my first goal. Get to Kira, give her a hug. I didn't realise my watch screen I set up. I had a kind of massive Garmin on and it set down with miles to go. So you're starting off and you start that first run in the torrential rain and you can see 347. You're like, I can't believe I see. But then it starts ticking down and you get through. I think having Kate by my side on the bike, she's just the most wonderful, amazing athlete looking after me. And I had a crew of 4 alongside kind of hubby in the camper van. And so you have that support, and it got to where they were giving up their time for me. They were so amazing, and I wanted to succeed for them. You just keep going. And I think kind of I'm very good at not sleeping. I think I did 2 hours, 17 minutes sleep over 3 nights in total. Just crashed at the side of the road for 10-minute caffeine naps, 20 minutes in the back of the camper van. It's incredible what the body can do if you really want to do something. And I think that's the message. If I didn't know why I was there, I would have had absolutely no hope of finishing it, no help whatsoever. So it's when I go and pick the challenges, I've got to know exactly why I'm doing it, because you've got to find your limits. You know, your mind will give up before your legs do. And if your mind wants to do something, it will make your legs comply.
And do you think you've always had that naturally at your essence, that resilience to keep going? Or is that something that you've built over time with these events?
I think you build it. I think we have different personalities, but do I think kind of, 14-year-old me could have run any faster in that mile? Probably, if I'd actually wanted to. One of the things I kind of have is kind of in my head, this little power jar, which when I get to give talks and people say, well, I could never do that. And I said, well, think about all the things that you've done before, where you've taken on something and you didn't think you could finish. All the amazing achievements you've had, and you kind of write them down and put them in your power jar. And where you think your limits are, you break that limit, you put that in your power jar and think, right, I've done that. And you reframe it for the next challenge and go, I didn't think I could do this, but I did. So look at what I'm doing now. Where are my limits? Can I do a little bit more? Giving yourself that confidence that you can do that. So I think resilience is built up. I think it helped kind of working in an investment bank and having to go and do all-nighters. I think motherhood gives you incredible resilience in so many aspects. And I think we overlook. I was CFO of a global marketing agency, and I put the hours for my finance directors in every market as 10 till 3, Monday to Thursday, because I wanted a team of mums and I couldn't afford kind of full time, but I was going to pay full time for those hours because I knew mums would just get stuff done, and all the challenges, they would absolutely smash them. We grow this. I think some people, I'm just weak. I'm not resilient. I think we can help them grow. And I think it's what I look to do with the children is think about them taking on challenges and them growing. And when they doubt themselves, reminding them of what they didn't think they could do and they did. So maybe let's look at what you're doing now. And yes, you can pass that exam because, you've done these things before.
Clearly, nutrition and recovery are absolutely key to endurance training, endurance racing. So where do you feel people generally go wrong in those areas?
I think when you come to 24-hour running, it is an absolute science. And if you don't eat, you can't move. I think people have not fueled their training enough. I've struggled with my body image for decades, and it's something I'd had to deal with, really address since I had my daughter, because I don't want her to grow up feeling as I did, and not properly fueling training has been one of them, and thinking, well, I'm only an hour from home. I won't have that extra snack because I can then create a deficit and trying to lose some weight. And so I need that snack because I need to see my body as a tool that I need to fuel it properly. I think during the events, it's eating soon enough. Sometimes people wait until they need to. I mean, I fuel within the first 20 minutes of any run, any event, fueling every hour, looking at what you can keep in, having backup options. When you go to ultras, you've got like a picnic table of food and something's going to work, but if you're only practiced on using one thing. But I think sodium is a new one that people don't understand. I nearly lost my life in the middle of the Cambodian jungle, having hypernatremia on an ultra. I drank too much water.
Yeah.
I didn't replace my salts. My sodium level was 108 and it should have been 130, and I was helicoptered out. So
wow.
I'm very scientific about salt, and you need a lot more than often these replacement capsules have. So I need 1,000 milligrams or a gram of salt, a gram of sodium per litre that I drink. And making sure I'm absolutely replacing all of that is really difficult for people to think about them. There's a lot of maths involved in these longer events.
Yeah.
I have Excel spreadsheets for everything. This is where the accountant in me gets very happy. Everything is an Excel spreadsheet. My caffeine, I built a little model to model half-life of caffeine and how much I could have before, kind of everything went wrong inside. But I think it's eating enough, it's drinking enough, it's taking enough salt. and more than anything, listening to the body. And, racing as I did kind of 33-degree heat, 100K kind of at the weekend, kind of, it's people dropping like flies because they just assume that they could run the same pace at 30-degree heat that they could do at 15 degrees. And that's just not the case.
Another incredible race. So in terms of looking back at all those races, if you had to choose now, which would be the most meaningful or your kind of greatest personal achievement?
I think Ireland is so special because of the connection to the family, and the team were together. And I think seeing the family at the end and finishing it, it was so beautiful. It was so wonderful. And I was struggling so much because I had the early stages of kind of heat exhaustion. We went from torrential rain for a couple of days into the last day being so hot that I couldn't control my body temperature. I was just too tired to control it. So we were chucking me with water and icing me down and doing everything we could. Lots of Mr. Whippies, ice lollies. I think it was where I realized that, kind of this was an achievement. And I think we always just compare to others, and it's, well, this person can run this. And I don't even know how fast I'd run a marathon because I don't run them. And it's not part of my training. I might run London next year. I should probably run a marathon. So at some point, because it's fun, but I often have a lack of confidence in myself. And I think it's when I did Ireland, and the lady who had the record before me, Mimi Anderson, is one of the greatest British ultra runners of all time. She's my absolute idol. She's phenomenal. And to break her record was very special. So I think that's Ireland.
How was she? How was Mimi about it?
She was so helpful. I think this is the community of women helping women. Every question I had about it, about the route, she answered. I took her route, and she said it was a very special record to her and that she'd shed a bit of a tear, but she was so supportive. She was tracking the whole way. And, we don't own records. We just hold them for the next person. And I've already kind of had people saying, tell me about it. Like, what was it? And if there's someone taking on that record, I'm going to be absolutely behind them and hoping that we can do it to push forward the boundaries of female endurance. And that's what's exciting. The idea that someone would take it on, to me, is exciting, that I could use everything that I learned and the mistakes that I made to help someone else do it. It doesn't take away from me that I break the record, someone beating it. It's just exciting that someone else would then get to beat it.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned a marathon there as kind of potentially London Marathon in the future, but other events and races on your bucket list at all?
Oh gosh, I'd love to go to the States and race one of their Western States type races, just to the aid stations and experience the cultures. I think.
What are the aid stations like when you say that?
It's just the cheering stations and the food. It's about, ultras are just I sell ultras to so many people. It's like marathon, no one talks to each other. You just keep going straight. Ultras is a long day picnic. There's just great food. And I love food and cakes and just whatever you want. There's burgers and tacos at stations. I was like, I could definitely do that. I think with SheRACES, I'm lucky kind of next year looking at going out to some of the races, like Uzbekistan, and really understanding the running culture out there. And there's so much that women have in common everywhere in the world, but there are so many differences that we have. So how can SheRACES develop? So getting out to some of these races, more mountains, there's definitely some more world records kind of up my sleeve that we're thinking about, big adventures, because that's fun. I think races are great, but I don't like racing other people. And I've realized that wherever I come in a race doesn't really matter, because it's who shows up to the start line. And, come first. It's amazing. It's really fun. Kids love a trophy, but it doesn't drive me. And I think this is where running for Great Britain drives me, because I'm running for my country and I'm running a team. And that's really special to me. And I know that I need that to break my limits. And so challenges are something that's for another reason that will help me break my limits. If you put me in a marathon, I don't care. And you have to know what drives you. And some people, they love that feeling of a marathon PB. And I don't think it would excite me to push myself. So I think it's really learning what excites me. I think the experiences of some of these races and what I can learn from them, and learn from working with the organisers and discovering new places, and eventually taking some of my kids around to kind of pace me. I'd love, the boys to start kind of pacing legs on things, but ultrarunning's exploded. And I think it's exciting to see more people kind of take it on and have those benefits from it. But yeah, it's an I don't know kind of answer. Kind of, I'll see what kind of comes up, but definitely planning some adventures, exploring some new races. But never taking it too seriously, I think, because I'm glad I'm not an elite athlete. Glad I'm not sponsored. I'm glad this isn't my job, because that would take the fun away. And when you're dealing with motherhood and the juggle of everything, I can't be on kind of 52 weeks a year. And, I've got so long to the world, and I can do a kind of 3-month kind of focus, but I've got to have downtime, and I've got to have time where I can focus on everything else. So it's a juggle, but it's a fun one. And I'm excited. I think I look forward to, then there's women I know that are in their 70s, absolutely smashing races.
I was going to ask how long do you think you'll keep running for?
I mean, my goal is to be running when I'm 80. And that's where looking after my body now is one of the most important things I can do. And the fully fueling and the strength and the recovery. I mean, Ireland took me 8 weeks to recover from, and my body got back quicker, but my nervous system wasn't recovered. And so looking at some of the data on the blood data, like really understanding, making sure I'm recovering. You can't really bet too many matches. There's only so many times I think I can run the length of a country. But I'm desperate. I see my friend Edda, I met her in Bhutan and in Cambodia, and she's traveling around the world. She's breaking records for women over 70, doing 24-hour races. She's always racing. And I look to her and think, I want to be you when I grow up. So that's the goal, but it takes so much to get there. But if I take it too seriously now, I'm not going to get that.
I love it. And I'm so excited about your book. Is it January next year it's coming out?
It's coming out in January at the Run Show.
Oh, of course. Lovely. I love that.
I agreed to do it. I wrote half 5 years ago after UTMB, and it doesn't seem the right time. And I was like, I felt that was the highlight of my life, that kind of chapter in there. And then something said to me, you have another chapter to write. And I would have no idea the last kind of 5 years of now another baby running for Great Britain, SheRACES. And so kind of Bloomsbury came up to me when I was on the treadmill. It's quite hard to say no or think clearly when you're on the treadmill. I think it was the second day as well, which is really mean. And I just thought this is the right time. So yeah, we're going to launch it, I think, at the running show next year.
Fantastic. And I read I think probably my favourite book this year was Ultra Women by Lily Cantor and Emma Wilkinson. For me, an extraordinary book, because I think it answered so many questions that I had around women and their potential, and why women are doing better than men at many of these ultra events, and kind of overturning, but in a fantastic way of people alongside people's stories and everything about that. So is that kind of what you're hoping to bring people into the world of ultra running, to explain more? What might we get from the book?
Oh, I love ultra running. I love it. It's a phenomenal book. I think I'm one of the chapters.
You are.
I've known you a long time. It's a fun, but I think it's this book isn't about the science. I think it's hard to say, what do you write a book on? And originally it was going to be kind of life lessons and things. But then I was like, I'm going to write a book about all my running exploits. But I think it's very much a book to make people think twice, and how I've gone on my journey and what the lessons I've learned and what I can pass on. And my goal is that every woman, every man reading this book thinks that they can do more than they thought before. And there's definitely SheRACES in there. And I think hoping to everyone to think they can do more than they did before, but also advocate for others and how to advocate for others, and that we need to bring everyone along this journey, and we have a right to these feelings of taking part in sport. And so yeah, I hope that's what it does. There's a lot of gory details about ultra marathons and the nearly dying and the Sahara, how everything kind of came about, and a lot about motherhood and getting back and the struggles after having the children, and then to performance and running for Great Britain in the 24 hours and pushing limits now. So it's a story. I think there's a lot drawing the lessons out, which was really important to me I think sometimes I read a book and it's a lovely story, but I want to take something to my own life and learn something. And that's how I've tried to write it. So it's exciting. It's quite frightening putting yourself out there. And I think making myself understand how I got to where I got to has been, I guess, free therapy in a way. I think it'll explain a lot about kind of my background growing up, and a lot of the privileges I had growing up, being able to read an OS map because my cousin was a scout leader, and how I've used that to do ultras now, and how I need to then understand that other women don't have that, and how do we then get that understanding and making events more inclusive, because not everyone is going into a race knowing how to read an OS map, be comfortable in the outdoors and know their first aid, etc. So yeah, that's like off topic, but it's going to be quite scary. It's going to be very scary to put it out there.
Very exciting. I can't wait. I really can't wait. I guess just finally, in terms of how success has defined and changed you over the years, what does success look like for you today, kind of on and off the running trails?
I've had to work this out over the last few years. And I think success used to mean something very different. And I think when I was in the corporate life, you're on that road to, I was CEO of a tech company and being very, very successful, a very, very young CFO of very large business divisions. And I thought that was success. And I thought prestige and corporate success. And I realized that none of that actually matters to me. And it does to some people. I think success to me is certainly balance, is certainly raising a happy family, a happy, healthy family. But the thing that matters to me most is helping others and helping others, succeed. And the best thing that happened is when someone asks me some advice and you take it and they complete a challenge that they couldn't do, and they come back and you just see this amazing smile on their face. And for me, it's very much breaking down barriers for other women. And that's what makes me happy. That's what success is. And I'm grateful. I know that. I think this is where that photo brought this out. I'm not sure would I'd ever work that out. I mean, I ran a social impact tech company kind of cleaning polluted air, and that was great. But I think the path I'm on now is fascinating. And I think expanding that to outside sport will be really interesting in how do we use the learnings from SheRACES and the change we've been able to drive on very limited resources, but through very good strategy globally and into other areas it's really exciting.
I hope you enjoyed hearing from Sophie. She almost makes me want to put my trainers on and start running distances again. If you'd like to hear from other extraordinary trailblazers, there are over 200 episodes of The Game Changers that are free to listen to on all podcast platforms or from our website at fearlesswomen.co.uk. Our guests have included elite athletes, coaches, entrepreneurs, broadcasters, scientists, journalists, and CEOs. All women who are changing the game in sport. As well as listening to all the podcasts on the website, you can also find out more about the Women's Sport Collective, a free, inclusive community for all women working in sport. We now have over 13,000 members from across the world, so please do come and join us. The whole of my book, Game On, The Unstoppable Rise of Women's Sport, is also free to listen to on the podcast. Every episode of Series 13 is me reading a chapter of the book. Thank you once again to Sport England for backing the Game Changers and the Women's Sport Collective with a National Lottery Award, and to Sam Walker at What Goes On Media, who does such an excellent job as our executive producer. Thank you also to my brilliant colleague, Kate Hannon, who works with me at Fearless Women. You can find The Game Changers on all podcast platforms, so please do follow us now to ensure you don't miss out on future episodes. Come and say hello on social media, where you'll find me on LinkedIn and Instagram at Sue Anstis. The Game Changers. Fearless Women in Sport.